It's week 17 of the NFL season, and here are my predictions for this week. But first, how did I do last week? In week 16 in wins and losses, I went 12-4, and against the spread, I went 10-6. And before getting into the video, I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody watching, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. So kicking off the week on Thursday, Christmas Day, we have the 6-8-1 Cowboys versus the 4-11 Commanders. The Cowboys are coming off a 34-17 loss against the Chargers, and Dak Prescott went 21 of 30, 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Javonte Williams had 34 yards rushing, and he is questionable this week. And George Pickens led the team with 7 receptions, 130 yards and a touchdown. Then the Commanders are coming off a 29-18 loss against the Eagles, and Marcus Mariota went 7 of 14 and 95 yards, but he left that game early injured and is questionable this week. And Josh Johnson came in and went 5 of 9, 43 yards and an interception. Then Chris Rodriguez Jr. had 63 yards rushing and a touchdown, and Terry McLaurin had 3 receptions and 53 yards. With the Cowboys' loss last week, they are officially eliminated from playoffs, so this game has no playoff implications. But with the Cowboys still having a good offense, and the Commanders possibly starting Josh Johnson, I have the Cowboys winning and covering the 7-point spread. Then the 8-7 Lions versus the 7-8 Vikings. The Lions are coming off a 29-24 loss against the Steelers, and they had a very good chance to win this game late in the fourth quarter, and they even got into the end zone twice, but both times they were called for offensive pass interference, so that's how they ended up losing. But Jared Goff went 34 of 54, 364 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then David Montgomery led the team with just 14 rushing yards, and the team as a whole had 12 carries for 15 rushing yards. Then Jamison Williams led the team with 5 receptions and 70 yards. Then the Vikings are coming off a 16-13 win against the Giants, and J.J. McCarthy went 9 of 14, 108 yards and an interception. Then he left the game early with a hand injury and is questionable this week. And Max Brosmer went 7 of 9 and 52 yards. Then Aaron Jones had 85 yards rushing, and Justin Jefferson had 6 receptions and 85 yards. And on defense, they had 5 sacks and an interception, while also holding the Giants to just 141 yards. Right now, the Lions are still alive in the playoff race, but they need to win their final 2 games, while the Packers lose their last 2 games as well. But for the meantime, I think the Lions are going to win and keep their playoff chances alive and cover the 6-point spread. Then the 12-3 Broncos versus the 6-9 Chiefs. The Broncos are coming off a 34-20 loss against the Jaguars, and Bo Nix went 28 of 47, 352 yards, a touchdown and an interception. RJ Harvey had 50 yards rushing and a touchdown, while also having 4 receptions and 71 yards. And Cortland Sutton led the team with 6 receptions, 86 yards and a touchdown. And on defense, they had 5 sacks, but they also allowed 34 points. Then the Chiefs are coming off a 26-9 loss against the Titans, and Gardner Minshew started the game 3 of 8 with 15 yards, but he ended up tearing his ACL. And that's now back-to-back weeks for the Chiefs having a quarterback tear their ACL. And now Chris Oladokun is going to be their starter, while Shane Buechele is going to be their backup. But in that game, Chris Oladokun went 11 of 16 and 111 yards. Then Isaiah Pacheco had 34 rushing yards, and Xavier Worthy had 2 receptions and 41 yards. But now the Chiefs have lost 4 games in a row, and they have just a ton of injuries right now. Then also on Monday, it was announced that the Chiefs are moving from Missouri to Kansas in 2031 and getting a new stadium. So I have the Broncos winning and covering the 13.5-point spread. Then moving over to Saturday, we have the 10-5 Texans versus the 11-4 Chargers. The Texans are coming off a 23-21 win over the Raiders, and CJ Stroud went 23 of 35, 187 yards and a touchdown. Then Jahar Jordan had 53 yards rushing, and Nico Collins had 4 receptions and 59 yards. And on defense, they had 3 sacks, and Derek Stingley had an interception and returned it for a 31-yard touchdown. Then for the Chargers, in their win against the Cowboys, Justin Herbert went 23 of 29, 300 yards and 2 touchdown passes, while also running for 42 yards and a touchdown. Then Omarion Hampton had 85 yards rushing and a touchdown, and Quentin Johnston had 4 receptions, 104 yards and a touchdown. This should be a very good and close game, and I could see this game going either way. Entering this game, the Texans have won 7 games in a row, while the Chargers have won 7 out of their last 8. And the Chargers have been very good at home this year, being 6-2, but their offensive line is not good with all their injuries. And the Texans have one of the best defenses in the NFL. But I still have the Chargers winning and covering the 2.5-point spread. Then the 7-8 Ravens versus the 9-5-1 Packers. The Ravens are coming off a 28-24 loss against the Patriots. Lamar Jackson started out the game 7 of 10 and 101 yards, but left the game with a back injury. And right now he's listed day-to-day, but his game status is still questionable, and he does have a back bruise. But it sounds like there's a good chance he will start. Then Tyler Huntley in that game went 9 of 10 and 65 yards. Then Derrick Henry had 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Zay Flowers led the team with 7 receptions and 84 yards, while also having an 18-yard rushing touchdown. And on defense, they had 4 sacks and an interception. Then for the Packers, they're coming off a 22-16 loss against the Bears. And they were up 16-6 late in the fourth quarter. But the Bears went down and got a 43-yard field goal as the game went to the 2-minute warning. Then they got the onside kick, and Caleb Williams connected with Jade Walker for a 6-yard touchdown, and that ended up tying the game and going to overtime. Then Caleb Williams hit DJ Moore for a 46-yard touchdown to win the game. But for the Packers, Jordan Love started out the game 8 of 13 and 77 yards. But he left with a concussion and is questionable this week. And Malik Willis came in and went 9 of 11, 121 yards and a touchdown. But he's also questionable with a shoulder injury. But if both of them can't play, it's going to be Clayton Tune at quarterback. Then Emmanuel Wilson had 82 yards rushing. Then Romeo Doubs had 5 receptions, 84 yards and a touchdown. So both teams have some injuries coming into the game. For the Packers, Jordan Love, Malik Willis, Josh Jacobs, and Romeo Doubs are all questionable. And for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is questionable. But both these teams need a win to help them get into the playoffs. With a Ravens loss, they are eliminated from playoffs, and the Steelers will win the division. And with a Packers win, they would clinch the playoffs and eliminate the Lions. But I still have the Ravens winning. Then moving over to Sunday, we have the 9-6 Steelers versus the 3-12 Browns. In the Steelers win against the Lions, Aaron Rodgers went 27 of 41, 266 yards and a touchdown. Then Jaylen Warren had 143 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and Kenneth Gainwell had 5 receptions, 78 yards and a touchdown. Then for the Browns, they're coming off a 23-20 loss against the Bills. And Shedeur Sanders went 20 of 29, 157 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, and he led the team with 49 yards rushing. Then Harold Fannin Jr. had a big game with 4 receptions, 34 yards, and a touchdown, while also having a rushing touchdown. But their leading receiver was Travion Williams with 4 receptions and 38 yards. And on defense, Myles Garrett got half a sack, so he's up to 22 on the season. So he just needs 1 more sack to have the single season record. But also in that game, Quinshon Judkins had a horrible leg injury and ended up dislocating his ankle and fracturing his fibula. But luckily he didn't injure his knee, and it's a broken leg, so that's going to recover a lot faster than like a torn ACL would have been. But for the Steelers, DK Metcalf is suspended for the last 2 regular season games after punching a fan in Detroit, and TJ Watt is still questionable. And then there is some reports that if the Ravens were to lose and the Steelers win the division, that they're most likely going to rest a lot of their starters. But I still have the Steelers winning, but the Browns covering the 3.5-point spread. Then the 12-3 Patriots versus the 3-12 Jets. In the Patriots win against the Ravens, Drake May went 31 of 44, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And that was Drake May's first career 300-yard passing game. Then Ramondre Stevenson had 51 yards rushing and a touchdown, and Stephon Diggs had 9 receptions and 138 yards. Then for the Jets, they're coming off a 29-6 loss against the Saints, and Brady Cook went 22 of 35, 188 yards and an interception, and he was sacked 8 times. Then Breece Hall had 54 yards rushing, and Isaiah Davis had 4 receptions and 52 yards. And for the Patriots this week, Travion Henderson is questionable with a concussion. but I have the Patriots winning and covering the 13.5-point spread. Then the 5-10 Saints versus the 3-12 Titans. In the Saints win over the Jets, Tyler Shuck went 32 of 49, 308 yards and a touchdown, and Taysom Hill also had a 38-yard passing touchdown. And he's now the first player in NFL history to have at least 1,000 passing yards, 1,000 rushing yards, and 1,000 receiving yards. And he also led the team in that game with 42 yards rushing. And Chris Olave had 10 receptions, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And on defense, the Saints had 8 sacks and an interception. Then in the Titans win over the Chiefs, Cam Ward went 21 of 28, 228 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Tony Pollard had 102 yards rushing, and Elick Ayomanor had 3 receptions and 58 yards. And on defense, they had 4 sacks and held the Chiefs to just 133 yards. Both of these teams aren't having a good season, but both have been playing good lately, with the Saints winning 3 games in a row, and the Titans winning 2 out of their last 3. And both of them have rookie quarterbacks that are both playing good. And I can see this game going either way, but I have the Titans winning. Then the 11-4 Jaguars versus the 8-7 Colts. In the Jaguars win over the Broncos, Trevor Lawrence went 23 of 36, 279 yards and 3 touchdowns, while also having a rushing touchdown. And he's been playing phenomenal over the last month. In his last 4 games, he has 12 passing touchdowns and no interceptions. And also in those 4 games, he has 2 rushing touchdowns. And on the season, he's completing 60% of his passes with 3,400 yards, 26 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, while also having 320 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. And before that win over the Broncos, I thought the Jags were complete frauds this season and that they were very overrated, but it looks like the Jaguars are just very good. But also in that game, Travis Etienne Jr. had 50 yards rushing, and Parker Washington had 6 receptions, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Then the Colts are coming off a 48-27 loss on Monday Night Football against the 49ers, and Phillip Rivers had a good game, going 23 of 35, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Then Jonathan Taylor had 46 yards rushing and a touchdown, and Alec Pierce had 4 receptions, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the Colts need a win this week to stay alive in the playoffs, as long as the Texans lose. But the Jaguars are just playing some really good football, and I have the Jaguars winning and covering the 6.5-point spread. Then the 7-8 Buccaneers versus the 6-9 Dolphins. The Buccaneers are coming off a 23-20 loss against the Panthers, and Baker Mayfield went 18 of 26, 145 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Then Bucky Irving had 71 yards rushing, and Emeka Egbuka had a reception and 40 yards. Then for the Dolphins, they're coming off a 45-21 loss against the Bengals, and Quinn Ewers went 20 of 30, 260 yards and 2 interceptions. Then Devon Achane had 81 yards rushing and a touchdown, and Jalen Waddle had 5 receptions and 72 yards. And the Buccaneers are entering this game losing 6 out of their last 7, and they're currently in second place in their division to the Panthers, so they need this win to stay alive in contention for Week 18 when they play the Panthers again. But I have the Buccaneers winning and covering the 5.5-point spread. Then the 12-3 Seahawks versus the 8-7 Panthers. The Seahawks are coming off a 38-37 win against the Rams in overtime, and this was one of the best games of the year. And Sam Darnold went 22 of 34, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Then Kenneth Walker had 100 yards rushing and a touchdown, while also having 3 receptions and 64 yards. And Jackson Smith-Njigba led the team with 8 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Then in the Panthers win against the Buccaneers, Bryce Young went 21 of 32, 191 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Then Rico Dowdle led the team with 29 yards rushing, and Teteroa McMillan had 6 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown. So the Panthers have been one of the most surprising teams this season, and they've been very good lately, but they've been winning every other game for the last, 9 weeks. But currently the Seahawks are the best team in the NFC, and it's going to be a very hard game for the Panthers to win. So I have the Seahawks winning, but the Panthers covering the 7.5-point spread. Then the 3-12 Cardinals versus the 5-10 Bengals. The Cardinals are coming off a 26-19 loss against the Falcons, And Jacoby Brissett went 16 of 31, 203 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Then Michael Carter had 65 yards rushing, and Elijah Higgins had 7 receptions and 91 yards. Then for the Bengals, in their win against the Dolphins, Joe Burrow went 25 of 32, 309 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then Chase Brown had 66 yards rushing and a touchdown, and Jamar Chase had 9 receptions and 109 yards. Overall, the Cardinals have been very bad this season, and the Bengals haven't been much better win-wise, but they still have a very good offense, so I have the Bengals winning and covering the 7-point spread. Then the 2-13 Giants versus the 2-13 Raiders. In the Giants' loss against the Vikings, Jackson Dart went 7 of 13, 33 yards and an interception. Then Tyrone Tracy had 71 yards rushing, and Wan'Dale Robinson led the team with 3 receptions and 19 yards. And on defense, they had 4 sacks, and 2 of them were by Brian Burns, and he's up to 15 sacks on the season. And they also had an interception. Then in the Raiders' loss against the Texans, they actually put up a good fight against the Texans, only losing by 2. And Geno Smith went 16 of 23, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Then Ashton Jeanty had a very good game with 128 yards rushing and a touchdown, while also leading the team in receiving yards, having 1 reception for 60 yards and a touchdown. Both of these teams have been very bad this season, and the loser of this game will hold the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, at least for next week, and the loser is most likely going to fall to at least the 3rd pick or even worse. But I think overall the Raiders are playing a little bit better recently, so I have the Raiders winning and covering the 1.5 point spread. Then the 10-5 Eagles versus the 11-4 Bills. In the Eagles' win against the Commanders, Jalen Hurts went 22 of 30, 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Saquon Barkley had 132 yards rushing and a touchdown, and A.J. Brown led the team with 9 receptions and 95 yards. Then for the Bills, in their win against the Browns, Josh Allen went 12 of 19 and 130 yards. Then James Cook had 117 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns, and Khalil Shakir led the team with 4 receptions and 34 yards. And on defense, they had 3 sacks and 2 interceptions, and 2.5 of those sacks were by Greg Rousseau. I think this is going to be another very close game. So far this season, the Eagles' offense has been very inconsistent, while the Bills' defense has been very inconsistent. But I think in close games like this, it's going to come down to the better quarterback, and that's Josh Allen. So I have the Bills winning and covering the 1.5 point spread. Then on Sunday Night Football, the 11-4 Bears versus the 11-4 49ers. In the Bears' win over the Packers, Caleb Williams went 19 of 34, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then DeAndre Swift had 58 yards rushing, and DJ Moore had 5 receptions, 97 yards and a touchdown. Then for the 49ers, in their win against the Colts, Brock Purdy went 25 of 34, 295 yards, 5 passing touchdowns and an interception. Then Christian McCaffrey had 117 rushing yards, while also having 6 receptions, 29 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And their leading receiver was George Kittle with 7 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And on defense, they had 2 sacks and an interception, and the interception was a 74-yard pick 6. Currently, the Bears have won 7 out of their last 8 games, while the 49ers have won 5 games in a row. I think this is going to be another very close game, and it's looking like there's going to be a lot of close games on the schedule this week. But for me, I really like how the Bears have been playing, and I have the Bears winning. Then finally, on Monday Night Football, the 11-4 Rams versus the 6-9 Falcons. In the Rams' loss against the Seahawks, Matt Stafford went 29 of 49, 457 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then Kyren Williams had 70 yards rushing, and Puka Nacua had 12 receptions, 225 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And on defense, they had 4 sacks and 2 interceptions. Then in the Falcons' win over the Cardinals, Kirk Cousins went 21 of 35, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, while also having a rushing touchdown. Then their leading rusher was Tyler Algier with 79 yards rushing. Then Bijan Robinson had 76 yards rushing, while also leading the team with 7 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. And James Pierce added on to his already very good rookie season with a half sack, and he's already up to 8.5 sacks. But the Rams are still one of the best teams in the NFL, even after coming off a loss, and I have the Rams winning and covering the 8.5 point spread. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Goodbye.